Hi, I'm Graham England, Lead Analyst for the Automation Centre of Excellence here at Travelport in Denver. In the next few minutes I'd like to give you an overview of our company and let you know about our automation framework, and then go on to give you a demonstration of using UFT Developer to create tests on a Windows machine and then execute them on a Mac. Travelport is headquartered in England, but we are a global technology company building travel industry solutions, and I work in the Denver Test Automation Group, part of the QM Shared Services COE. I've been coding since 1980. Pictured here is my first program, Duck Shoot, just for a laugh. You can tell how old it is because if you win it says Nanu Nanu, and if you lose it says Shazbot. And if you understood those references, you might need to explain it to the younger folks around you. I've specialised in automated regression testing since before there were tools available. I joined Travelport in '96 and using UFT since 2003 because frankly it's awesome at automating testing of just about anything you can imagine. I created our test automation framework Test Factory around UFT with a .NET Common Library and a scheduling and reporting website. I created a Java version of this common library in 2017 to support more platforms and the company's adoption of Scaled Agile. Lastly, I evaluated LeanFT, UFT Developer as it's called now, in 2016, and now we've got 2 projects that are piloting its use. As you can see from this slide, at Travelport we use a lot of different technologies for our applications, websites and APIs. Because of the complexity, it was essential for us not only to have the best test tools, but a complete automation framework for executing and reporting tests in a way that everyone in Travelport could see them. We'll go into that in more detail shortly. Currently we've got about 220 people worldwide involved in our test automation, and 2 or 3 years ago we adopted the Scaled Agile model, and the majority of our projects are now in a CI/CD environment. Travelport is moving from an inconsistent way of releasing code to something consistent and predictable at the click of a button. For our GUI testing, UFT has supported us for many years because it handles all the many technologies we use, but unfortunately UFT only runs on Windows, and we'll come back to that challenge in a moment. So quickly about our Test Factory framework, I built it around our test automation tools to provide common function library, that's both .NET and Java, with hundreds of methods to simplify and enhance testing and produce a common format for result logs regardless of the test tool being used. We have a website to schedule and queue automated tests or run them on demand, locally or remotely in our VM lab. This website also allows us to view results even as the tests are running. We can view result history, summarize across multiple projects, and drill down to every test step and validation. We have the ability to remotely execute tests from a Jenkins or Azure pipeline and optionally wait for the results. We have a single repository of version-controlled test data. We have a terminal emulation test harness as well to allow SMEs to create comprehensive host system tests without programming or automation experience. We have coding standards and a code validation tool that makes sure that the tests are written to these standards. We have documentation, quick start guides, and even how-to videos. This framework is what makes it possible to be executing well over 1 million test validations every month. Now, as I mentioned earlier, while UFT1 is a great tool for creating automated GUI tests regardless of the technology being tested, it only runs on the Windows platform. It's also aimed at test automation engineers, and the tests are written in VB Script. UFT Developer, on the other hand, is aimed at developers, and the test code can be written in a choice of popular languages and IDEs. It works on Windows, Mac OS and Linux, and integrates with tools that developers are already familiar with. Not only does it integrate nicely with our Test Factory framework, but UFT Developer fully supports CI, CD, BDD and TDD, making it the perfect choice for GUI testing in an agile environment, as you'll see from the points on this slide. In this way, developers and testers work more closely together to truly shift left and reduce time to market. Developers bring coding, tools and environment knowledge to the table, while the testers provide solid QA practices and subject matter expertise. Working together transfers knowledge in both directions, helping to unify agile teams and provide better quality application. And kudos to Nick Mears at Micro Focus for this image, by the way. So the big question, can I run my automated GUI tests on a Mac? One of my roles as a lead test automation engineer is to always be thinking ahead as to how we can make our framework support anything that might come our way. Recently I've been collaborating with our digital team in Dublin, who are heavy users of Macs, so I wanted to see if it was possible for us to support this platform as well. UFT Developer, LeanFT, tests there can be written in Java, which also run on the Mac OS. But is it possible to write web tests in my Windows environment and execute them on a Mac? The answer is yes. The way I did it was to create UFT developer tests in Java, execute the tests and check the results, commit the test to a Git repository, and then switch to our Mac Mini into a terminal window, do a Git clone of the test and common library, and a Maven clean install to compile and run the tests. And that's what I'm about to show you in this demo right now. So here we are in Eclipse, although I could have done this in IntelliJ for our Java project. I'm going to create a new UFT developer testing project and make it a Maven project so that it downloads the necessary components automatically. Now we have to give it a group ID. I'm going to call it com.travelport.testfactory and give it an artifact name, an artifact ID. Going to call that Mac Demo, and then a project name. I'll call that Mac Demo as well. Going to finish and OK that, and then our project templates are created automatically for us. And then we just need to make a few changes to it and record the code that we want in there. Okay, so I'm going to open our Maven POM file. And I'm going to specify what external jars need to be downloaded from the repository. The first dependency we need to add is our Test Factory Framework's common library. Now I'm going to add a repository section so that Maven knows where to download these files from. And the last update to the POM is to tell it that the tests need to run in the main Java source as opposed to the test source location. Moving now to the UFT developer test file where we need to add the relevant UFT developer imports. And these are for the reporter, the general SDK, web SDK, and verification jars. And then going to declare variables for our browser object, browser type and URL at the top of the class, and paste in some code for the setup before class method in the UFT developer test file, which I'll come back to in a little while. And here I'm replacing the teardown after class method with the code to close the browser, summarize the results, and email a summary report. Okay, now I'm going to create a new Java class called Helper, which will contain some project-specific general methods, and I'm going to associate it with the com.travelport.testfactory package. And then in this particular helper file, I'm just going to paste my code to save some time. And in here, there are just two functions, one to update our Test Factory UFT developer and JUnit results log in one go, and another method to start up a new browser or reuse an existing one if possible. Going back now to our UFT developer test code, you'll see it instantiates UFT developer and our Test Factory framework, specifies the test data and result locations, configures UFT developer's native results, starts the browser and navigates to our test website. Following that, there is a teardown code I mentioned earlier. So that leaves us with the actual test code, which I could write as pure code and even create an object repository map, which is called an application model in UFT Developer, for easier script maintenance and to make our code much more readable. But because I don't have much time, I'm now recording the code using UFT Developer's recorder, and then I'm going to make a few minor tweaks to it so that it can talk with our framework. So here we go. Just as a test, I entered World According to Graham England in the search edit box, run a submit method on the search web edit, click the World According to Graham England link, click the DJ Life link, validate the properties of the Dance Groove Radio link, and validate the properties of the Mixcloud link. I'm sure that all makes perfect sense. This is on my personal website, as you can probably tell. Okay, there are the validations. And now the other link, Mixcloud. And I'm doing a pretty simple verification. I'm just checking the text as it appears, and then the href where it's actually linking to. Okay, we're going to stop that there. Now I'm going to copy this recorded code to the clipboard, switch back to Eclipse, and then paste it in to our test method. This is all functionality of UFT Developer. It's that simple. And now for my tweaks, I'm going to replace the browser object references to Go browser because I want to hang on to Hungarian notation as long as I possibly can. Just shows I'm old school. And now I'm telling it how to handle exceptions using throws declarations. And then something I like to do is to add comments to our results log so that we know what the test is doing. I strongly recommend doing this. So there we go. In the helper we can see update results, and this is where I'm going to put in a comment. Okay, alright, you get the idea, so I'm going to fast forward into the demo. Next I want to change the verifications so that everything is reported in our test factory framework as well as in the UFT developer log. That's one verification, and here's the next. I was getting that all from clipboard. I'm not usually that fast at typing. So in theory now, all our code is written and we want to test it locally on our Windows machine. So we do a Maven clean install to build the test and execute it. And off it goes. And we can see that everything passed, and now we're being sent a summary email. Here's our results email, and if we click on the link, it'll take us to the test factory format of results. You'll notice in addition to our machine configuration information, comments and passes, we can see a link to the UFT developer native results. And so there you have it. Let's close our browser windows and move our code into a Git repository so that we can share it with other users. I'm going to sign into our Git bucket, create a new repository. I'm going to give it a name. Specify that it's public and initialize it with a README. Okay, that's done, so I'm going to grab the repository's URL into the clipboard. Just like that. And now time to switch to a command window, or DOS box for us oldies. I'm going to paste in the repository's URL and prefix it with a batch file that's going to tell Git which files it should ignore, and initialize the empty repository and push the files. Now, unfortunately, both of my Mac Minis went offline and no one could access them during the quarantine when I recorded this presentation. However, I recorded a similar project a year ago, and that's what you're watching right now. So it's a little bit of a cheat, but it does do the same thing. So we go to do a git clone to pull our project to the machine. We hop into the projects directory. We do a maven clean install, and off she goes. Looks pretty familiar, right? This is also a shameful way for me to advertise my radio show on dancegrooveradio.com. Shameless plug there. In case you wonder why all the pages are about DJing, now you know. Okay, so we tested the website, and now it sends us our email results summary. You'll notice that the operating system in these results are going to show a Mac operating system, and that everything passed just as we expected. And there you go, Mac OS. So there you go, that was a whirlwind tour of getting to see programs being written in Windows and then executed on a Mac using UFT Developer. So some of the gotchas, I consider myself to be Mac-a-lackin'. I've worked on Windows operating systems since 1987, but only a few weeks on the Mac. Understanding their local file structure, how to map to a network drive, setting the proxy and things like this were a big challenge to me. It didn't help that the Mac I was working on was about 10 years old and painfully slow. Our Test Factory framework has a standard HTML format for test results, but I wanted to make use of the UFT developer format of results too, so Micro Focus support helped me to make some configuration changes and link it to our report as well. I needed help from Micro Focus support to have the test use the existing browser instance if already opened. That was a little tricky. Also, don't drag the UFT developer folder into the trash to uninstall an older version. Rerun the installation and choose uninstall, otherwise you'll have to get down and dirty with hidden folders, trust me. It's somewhat tricky creating a new Git repository. I got some developer help with this. And also make sure that the version of UFT developer used to create your test matches the SDK version and the runtime version installed on the machine running the tests. So here are just a couple of positive comments I received on the UFT developer-based testing approach. I'm hoping that we can really take advantage of what UFT developer has to offer to further build out our automation framework. If you have any questions, maybe you're trying to do the same thing, or if you've got any comments or would like to share what you've been working on with UFT Developer, please feel free to reach out to me, graham.england@travelport.com, or my personal email address, grahamengland@comcast.net, and I'll certainly try and commit some time to help you with it. And maybe we can compare ideas and I can learn some things from you too. Thanks for watching, and now it's time for Q&A.